I want to welcome you, Jeff, to the podcast. You know, it's actually a real honor to get to talk to you, and thank you for being on.
Thanks, Josh. Glad to be here.
You know, I was, like we were talking offline, I've been a fan of your, the films that you had made way back when I didn't even really know what YouTube was. I don't know what year that was. It was like 2004 or 6 or something like that.
2006.
Yeah. So somewhere around then I learned about YouTube, from my mom, actually, of all people. And, you know, and then, you know, but it's not long after that, I found the documentary that you made about, Brent Simon. And I thought maybe it'd be fun to talk a little bit about those days and what that whole thing was about.
Yeah, no, it's been about 11 years now. But 2006, so this is when YouTube, I think YouTube started in 2005.
Okay.
And then in 2006 is when it started to gain a little bit of traction.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't know Discover YouTube until Saturday Night Live had done that skit with Andy Samberg called Lazy Sunday. And there was like a song, you know, and it was really funny.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to watch it online, it was on a website called YouTube. And that's where I discovered it. And then I don't know, I think that might have been in November 2005 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then that's right around the time when Brent and I got together. We were hanging out and, you know, said we were going to shoot a documentary about Brent and, you know, film a day in his life. And he's like, I don't think that'd be a good idea. Like, well, you know, he's like, okay, you know, you guys are crazy. I doubt you're going to do it. And then we show up at his apartment the next day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and knock on his door, and he's, we just walked right in. His door was unlocked. We walked right into his house. It was dark, and he was sleeping still, and his alarm was going off when we walked in. And we were just filming, and that's how we started the documentary. And, yeah, it's available on YouTube, and it's called the Brentumentary. It's just about 30 minutes long. It's a story about the day in his life of my friend Brent Simon, who is this well, he's just a character. You got to watch it. We'll talk about it, I'm sure.
Yeah. You know, I'll put a link in the show notes about it. But, you know, just to give listeners a background, I mean, it sounds like you guys are great friends. And you know, he was someone who was really into a lot of things like, you know, downloading stuff off the internet, using BitTorrent and making songs on his synthesizer. And, you know, a lot of, like, you know, fairly nerdy things, I guess. I mean, he sang a song about space camp, which, I mean, hey, there you go. I mean, which was cool. I mean, I'd been there like 3 times as a kid, and, you know, so it was like, you know.
Nice. Yeah. And Brent was, so he was a friend of a friend, so to speak, for me. Like, my best friend, Dan, he was like my filmmaking buddy. You know, we used to make claymation videos when we were in 5th grade.
Yeah.
And, you know, stop motion stuff and messing with the camera and learning how to edit video and everything back when we were young. And I think he had gone off to college, and all of my friends gone off to college. I was, I think I was 2 years out of college at this point. So they all, you know, they were living out of state, but they come back for the holidays. Mm-hmm. And so while we all went bowling and we're all hanging out, we're eating Taco Bell, and that's when the idea came up. You know, me and Dan were like, let's make another project. You know, Brent, yeah, you're here. And now I had known Brent because he had played in a couple of bands that were in the friend group, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
And so he played keyboard for a band called Bellevue. Uh-huh. And they wrote songs. They wrote a song called Alien Abduction. And, you know, it's on Brent's album.
Yeah.
So this is where I first learned to see it. And we would always go see Bellevue shows. And it was Brent was sort of the keyboardist and vocalist, but then Matt Della Rosa was the guitarist and lead vocalist. Uh-huh. But their songs are super catchy as hell, and for some reason I always loved them, even though they weren't like the most polished professional band, but just the songs were catchy and charming, right? Yeah. And we would all, for some reason, our group of friends, we just went to the shows and we would dance and we would hang out, and it was always so much fun.
Yeah.
And I just remember, you know, like it has a soft, like a tender place in my heart, because that time of my life, I just feel such a fondness for it. It's like, I don't know how it was so nice. It was just the friends and the support and the creativity. It seemed like it was all humming along. It was so fun. Right.
It's like that sort of that right moment in time where all the stars kind of align, and you can do these things. You have the energy to do it. I don't know if you had the time, but clearly you found it. And you know, everything else, you know, the other people are also into it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I was making my own music I started making my own music in 2000, and you know, and then Bellevue songs were an inspiration to how I would make music too. Just the melody lines that Brent would play on his synthesizer, you know, were like influencing how I was writing melody lines in my songs.
Sure.
And And then back then I was going by the alias Box of Milk. And at that point we made, we were so creative back then. Like you said, we just were I felt so inspired to create, and I was making stuff all the time. And I think it was fun to make it and then show it to them. And then we would all react to it and say, oh, this is awesome. This is so cool. And then we would be like, they would be inspired to make something. And it was just this really good energy.
That's really awesome. You had that. I mean, it's hard to find, but yeah.
I know. And now I'm like longing for it these days. 11 years later, I'm like, oh man, that was so cool back then.
Yeah.
So lucky. Yeah. I didn't intend to create it. It just sort of was there for me, you know?
Yeah. So you guys make this, and you guys make this this film about Brent, and who's just sort of doing his thing. He's, you film him like waking up and like, getting ready in the bathroom, and sitting down and putting on deodorant, and then playing these like amazing like tunes that he rocks out on his keyboard right there. Just sort of, I mean, was that to some degree, like, did you guys put some like say, now do this, or what? Did you just let him like put the cameras in and let him do his thing?
We put the cameras in there and let him do his thing. We had no direction. We didn't even know what we were doing. We just brought there, we had two cameras. No, one camera, and then the other guy would just take a picture, my friend Jimmy. And so we're trying to like, we just show up in his room and like, okay, why is shooting someone getting ready for work interesting? He's putting on deodorant, he's putting on his boxers, he's putting in his contacts. He's checking his phone when the alarm's going off, and he like drops it, and it's like he just can't find it because it's so cluttered. and he's got a fan blowing on him, and it must be super hot in there. I don't know, just the small little details of his life were so just, it created this character. I felt maybe like a bit warm to him, there was an adoration or a sort of an appreciation, which Brent probably doesn't even recognize. He's just, this is him, this is himself. But I was able to see it, this charm that he just exudes just by being himself. So all I had to do is turn the camera on, and just Brent does Brent, and the rest he'll make the video himself. And when he sat down, he had like some time to get killed before he got ready to go to work. And he was like thinking, are you going to follow me to work? I mean, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? What do you want? So he's like, well, I might as well just rock out some jams while you're sitting here with the cameras rolling. So he said, okay. I sat down on his keyboard and just made magic. And I didn't know what to expect. And then he rocked out Space Camp, and he did the BitTorrent song. And then he just, did some other jams of his just instrumental, I think Beverly Hills Cop theme song or something like that. Yeah. And so that Space Camp song and the BitTorrent song, I was able to cut those out specifically and make separate YouTube videos for those. My intention was, I'll just take out the Space Camp song, and it'll be like a teaser to promote the documentary. Yeah. More people will see the documentary. I didn't expect the Space Camp song to go viral on the internet and get like, way popular. I did not expect that.
I don't think Brent expected it either. It sounds like,
No.
I mean, that's so cool that he just, sometimes when you put a camera there, people like kind of like, they kind of clam up and they're not themselves. And then he's like, yeah, there's a camera there. I'm just going to go about my thing. And that, that's pretty cool that it just kind of came together in that way. I don't know if that was the way he had always played, but I guess that was sort of like channeling 80s before that was really a thing. Like in the mid 2000s, that wasn't really like, like if you would go in the record store or whatever, like there were still record stores, and you would try to find something from the 80s and it'd be in the bargain bin. Like no one really cared about a lot of that synthesizer stuff. And here he's doing his thing. It sounds like something out of like, a video game or whatever that you'd play as a kid. And it was sort of like channeling retro before retro was a thing, I guess.
Yeah, now retro is a thing. We saw the TV show on Netflix called Stranger Things. Yeah. And the whole soundtrack is, the whole entire the show is totally directly inspired by retro 80s adventure movies and horror films, Sure. Yeah. The soundtrack, the logos, everything. And even before that, we started to see retro graphics and logos, with the neon and if you took like a picture, you had like the grid, like the sort of like Blade Runner sort of look going on, and just the neon and the space. And that was, as a graphic designer, I was into that for since like maybe the late 2000s. It started to get popular. Like vintage and retro always seems to be in whatever it happens, whatever vein or era you're reclaiming and making modern. It's like this new, now there's this new retro wave, this new synth wave. All these songs are influenced by like 80s horror soundtracks or 80s adventure movie soundtracks. And that's very popular online. But yeah, like you said, Brent was channeling that before it was cool, of course.
I guess maybe that was why it was cool. At least I remember, my brother, who's 8 years younger than me, watched that. Yeah. I don't remember if he found, I think I found it and I showed it to him, and we'd grown up like liking all that stuff. And like I said, I'd been to space camp a number of times. But when we watched that, it was cool because, you don't necessarily see that side of a person in just being themselves and liking those things and sort of unashamedly, I guess if that's a word, kind of just, this is who I am, this is what I like, if you don't like it, F you, whatever. And it was just kind of cool to see. I mean, it was and we enjoyed it a lot, so.
Yeah, because other things in the film are like, we show his room and it's like very messy, right? And he's got stuff on the walls, like he's got a Bigfoot poster, he's got a painting that his mom did of a UFO. It says, "I want to believe," an X-Files thing.
Right.
And so, and that's like super charming. He's got that on his wall. And he's got 5 1/4-inch floppy disks taped to his wall of video games that he's played, like for like Commodore 64 or something like that. Yeah. And this is his apartment. This is how he decorates his den,
Yeah.
And it's like, and he's got like BBC, Red Dwarf, and other like British humor like DVDs scattered on the floor. And I'm just getting a taste of this. These are Brent's interests, and these are all characterizing him. And he's not really ashamed of it. He probably doesn't even know why I'm making a movie about this. Like, why would anybody be interested in this? Right. But I think what's charming about it is the fact that yes, he was being himself, and it's not like he does any of this to be cool or to project an image of how trendy he is, because look how retro I can be.
Right,
look how hip I can be with like twisting on the old 80s, 70s thing and modernizing it with this cool new hipster attitude. It's like he was just into it without apology and without any pretense. And I think that's what was charming about him, why people like him, because there's that pretense isn't there.
Yeah. I mean, did he care like that you guys were doing? I mean, was there an element of like you guys are sort of making fun of me, or was it he didn't really care like one way or another?
I don't know. It's like we were making fun of him, but we liked it. We liked Brent.
It's clear.
Yeah. It's clear. I think that he picked up on that we weren't like we weren't teasing him. Yeah. We weren't trying to make him look bad. And of course, he got a lot of hate comments and stuff like that from people online once he posted video online. And of course, people are going to be like, "Oh, you're fat, clean your room, all this stuff." But he seemed to take all of that in stride. I don't know how he would seem to be so resilient to criticism.
Yeah.
If that was me, I would have been a lot more self-conscious, a lot more people are looking at me. I would have been more embarrassed,
Sure.
But he didn't seem to be embarrassed at all. If he was, he hit it really well.
Well, I mean, and I guess if you got some haters, there's always going to be that if you're doing something right. But I mean, it certainly went bigger, it sounds like, than it ever any of you guys would have imagined. Yeah.
Now here's a little bit of so let's talk about it going viral, right?
Yeah.
So this is when YouTube first got started, and I was just getting into YouTube, and I wanted people to see this. So I noticed pretty soon off, if you refresh the page, the view count goes up. Like, it was pretty easy to see. I'm like, oh, refresh. So I had a couple of friends of mine refresh the page, and we like seeded it so it got to be on the homepage of YouTube the next day.
Oh,
and then after that, it just sort of like went insane. We didn't expect it to, because I was like, why is there a video of some dude with like a picture and there's like and text on it, and that has like 7 million views? Like, there's no soundtrack. It's 7 seconds long. Why is everyone watching this? And I saw a lot of the top videos were like, why is this even a top video? This doesn't seem to be remarkable at all. So we just thought it was an experiment. We're like, let's see what happens if we refresh it and get Brent on the homepage of YouTube. And so that was our initial goal. We had no idea what was going to happen after that.
Yeah.
Because once we got it on the homepage of YouTube, we cheated, technically, whatever, if you want to say that.
That's like some ninja action going on there, like you did.
Yeah. Yeah, so once we got it on the homepage, it's like, then the internet took care of the rest. It started to, I did share it on some forums. I'm like, hey, check out this check out this video, like E-Bombs World and other internet viral video forums and websites. I was trying to share it. I was trying to promote it. I wanted to get it out there. And then that's when it started to really take off. And then Brent started getting calls from radio stations and other web-based podcasts and, YouTube channels wanted to interview Brent and talk to Brent. And we're like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, this is Brent's a new sensation. And I was young. I would think I was 24 or something like that at the time. And I'm all thinking that this is sweet. This is like our big chance, Brent. Come on, we're going to be big and famous. Yeah. So let's come out with the merchandise. Let's do our CD. I was like, I became his manager.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, manager on the CDs.
It was so funny. I mean, so there was an element of us trying to capitalize on the fame, that Brent had too. So the album, right? So after Brent started to get this fame and the popularity online and was getting a lot of attention, we're like, okay, we need to have an album. We need to release this album now before this fame dies down, this attention. And so actually it was one of the listeners named Rich Manga. He was a big fan of Brent and he emailed and said, I want to produce your record. I'll fly up to Cleveland or to Ohio from Florida and do it for free.
Wow.
And so he came up and and I took my vacation time and we spent a week living in I don't know if it was Brent's apartment or his mom's apartment. It was whatever it was. It was an empty apartment that we were staying in that we turned into the recording studio. And so that's when we recorded Brent's album. And that was some of the best times ever, man. It was just like so funny. Every day was a trip. Rich Manga's a character too. If you ever see him, he's got a YouTube channel and he's equally as quirky, but he's super nerdy and passionate about things. I don't know, whatever it is, but he's very prolific too. He's very opinionated about things. I don't know, but he was perfect for Brent in recording his album. I mean, he had the similar sense of humor. Yeah. And he knew Brent's talent and knew how to get it out. And that's when we produced the record. And then we had a forum for Brent where fans of his were, interacting with each other called We Are All Nerds. That was the name of the forum.
Oh, and I remember that. Yeah.
You remember that?
I do. Yeah.
And so we asked the kids on the forum if they would contribute some artwork, inspired by the album, inspired by Brent, and then we'll include the best ones in the album artwork. So that's what we did. And we got some people and people made tribute videos of Brent on YouTube. They were covering his songs and lip syncing his songs. And it was so incredible. I'm like, I can't believe this happens. And now I feel like, man, we were so lucky because you can't really create that, manufacture it. Well, I guess you can try, but I mean, it was genuine. And to see people inspired by Brent was people really looked up to him. He was unapologetically, he was nerdy. So I think he hit a chord with some people in the population that were feeling maybe left out or something like that. Right. And they looked at him and they're this guy fucking rocks. I'm gonna.
Well, to be fair, he's an amazing keyboard player too. I mean, and he just pulled that shit out of nowhere. It seemed like when you watch the video, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna sit down and put on my socks and I'll just pull this out.
Yeah, and I think he's self-taught too. And he's got really big hands, so he can play a whole octave with one.
Sure.
One of his hands.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people wow, kind of wishing because if you just sort of made a video of someone who didn't necessarily have that side, it'd be tough to come up with something to capitalize on, right? I mean, in his case, he had a whole CD you could put out. I had that CD in my car for a long, you have the car CD and it just stays in the car and just plays over and over again. And my wife, we were going someplace and he was like, "Who's this guy?" It's like, wow, this is a long story, but yeah, it's. I hope a lot of people bought the CD and listened to it. I know a lot of people, I think it was on, I don't know if there's still a MySpace. There was, I think, right? Yeah. I don't know if that still exists, but.
No, but it
wasn't there.
Right? That was the social media site at the time. So under the YouTube video, it was add Brent on MySpace and link to his thing. Right. And I haven't changed the description. So the video still says add Brent on MySpace. And people comment about that today. They're like, "Ha! Add Brent on MySpace." They're like, "I don't think this is a joke, friends. I think this is real." And it links to Brent's profile on MySpace, but MySpace has changed, so it's not really the same profile. I don't even think their music is there, but you can still see it.
Yeah.
And other things that Brent's doing. He's so what he's up to now. It's what I told you offline that he's doing an aerial photography small business. You know, he's shooting videos for companies and with drones.
Yeah.
So he's flying his drones around and shooting video, and then also he's also doing a lot of filmmaking himself too. So he's kind of directing and acting and starring and writing in his own low budget horror films, and you know, the same thing with the guys he used to play in Bellevue with his old band. So Matt Della Rosa, they've got this thing called the Slow Mutants, and they all
right. Are they still doing that?
They still do it.
Yeah, they
still do it, and that whole crew of, I mean, they were the sort of the Friends of the Friends group. You know, that whole crew. They still continue to make stuff.
That's great. Yeah. I remember you guys did a sort of a follow-up a few years later that's still on YouTube. I'll link to it. But it talks about, you know, what it was like to, I don't know, shoot through the moon and be on Jimmy Kimmel and all this other kind of stuff. And but then it's like sort of like what happens, you know, after all that stuff dies down, you know, go back to your regular life. And but that itself was, I don't know, a number of years ago, I think, right?
Oh yeah, because he had a new song called Hyperspace, and he, you know, called me up and was like, Jeff, I want you to like put this online. You know, it's my new song. And I was like, okay, well, let's do an interview with you and see. You could talk about what you've been up to and what it's been like and everything, you know. And so we did that, and of course, the video it got popular, but I mean, it didn't get nearly as popular. And at that time, you know, Brent's fan base was, you know, moving on. They're growing up.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking. Maybe if they were 16 now, they're like, you know, they're 30 years old now almost or something. I don't know. It seems crazy that this is YouTube. But yeah, you know, Brent, the fame never really got to his head because I don't think he ever felt like he wasn't shooting for it or trying for it. To him, it was like this thing that happened that he's just going to ride it while it lasts. And then he was going back to his old life that he felt comfortable with, you know. Right. He was never really one to take advantage of the fame too much. It was more me that wanted the fame, I think, than Brent.
Sure.
I was more interested in it as a phenomenon, and of course, living vicariously through Brent a little bit, but so proud of him at the same time.
Yeah.
So, he went back to his normal life. He went back to working at the Haylitz grocery store, which I don't know if he still works there or not. He may. I don't know what he's doing otherwise. He still lives in Manaway, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, it's sort of this interesting moment in time. I think
that's what it really was.
Yeah, but you know, you I don't know. I mean, when you made that movie? I mean, was that something that was? I mean, it's 30 minutes long, which is not insubstantial. I mean, was that something that took a lot of time to do to get it the way you?
I don't know. I don't really remember. I don't think it took much time at all because I was so excited about it. I just did it. You know, it was. You know, at that time I was passionate about making movies and filmmaking and being a director or something like that because I was very much into film, and me and my friends knew it. You know, they always come to me when they wanted to know what was cool, what was new, what was weird and obscure to watch, and I had all this like particular movie taste and was like, okay, so I'm the film guy of the group, I guess. And even though I wouldn't consider myself a professional by any means, I just had a strong passion. So to edit the video wasn't anything. I knew the software, knew the technology. It went together pretty easily. Brent wrote all the music, and I just included his songs. And I was doing it in a very DIY, lo-fi sort of way anyway, so it didn't matter about production quality. I just wanted to cut it together. And it was really enjoyable to do, so I don't think it took very long at all. It was up there in a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, it's very charming, you know, when you look at it now. I mean, it was a home video, and it you know, that has its charm, you know. I mean, if it had looked all polished and, you know, with fancy logos and stuff like that, it wouldn't be the same thing. You know, it just wouldn't.
I know that's true, and at the same time, I knew that lo-fi look is what I like in a lot of films anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny now that it's like the video quality is so terrible.
Well, when you blow it up on a big screen at the time, I don't know if you could do that at the time, right?
No, there wasn't anything set. There wasn't anything there was no HD.
Yeah.
It was like 360p.
Yeah.
Like, so you're talking 640 by 480. Or that's your resolution, 640 by 480. Now we're at like, you know, 1920 by 1080 is like the default.
Right.
1080p. So there was no widescreen, and there was no HD at that time.
Yeah. I don't even know if.
But the quality still sucked for that. Even I think it could have been better quality. It's all pixelated and artifacts and compressed.
I don't remember, but I think at the time, like, you know how the YouTube has a little rectangle, and you could push or click on the thing to make it larger and fill the whole screen. I don't even know if you could do that at the time, right? It's like when it was first, I don't remember, but
I don't remember. Yeah, it's a good point.
It's almost like it didn't really matter, and the fact that it is pixelated, I mean, it's so funny. Like you look at old like VHS kind of things, or like and you put them on a bigger screen, and they kind of look like ass. They're like stuff all over the place, and it didn't seem to matter at the time. Like it's kind of funny. Like I don't know, we've gotten more, whatever as the standards get better. So. But
well, now that retro is always going to be in. I bet you people are going to be trying to recreate the like 1990s, late 90s Sony Handycam look with filters and technology. Like
with all washed out colors and stuff. And
now people are doing it with VHS. So people are recreating VHS glitches in their music, recreating it in their videos. Like I have a plugin on my music production software that warps the audio and smushes it together in a way that makes it sound like it's off of like a 70s or 80s record intentionally. Like I'm doing it in post-production to make it sound shittier, and so there's a certain charm when something already sounds shitty, I guess, and now people are trying to recreate it through modern technology.
Right. From talking to you, I mean, it sounds like, your creative life definitely didn't end there. I mean, it continued. I mean, for, and took different forms. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Sort of post Brentumentary, or however you pronounce it, the Brent documentary.
Yeah. So like when the Brentumentary came out, I was just starting to work at Go Media, which was this small graphic design firm in Cleveland that I joined up as a partner, and so that took over my life for the next decade basically, and I put a lot of my energy into that, and we started. Although we were doing graphic design for bands and t-shirt brands and clothing and small businesses and stuff, doing their logos and graphics, but then websites. But I had a passion for the t-shirt designs and the album artwork of the music, And so I kind of did a lot of that. I ended up writing a book called Threads Not Dead, The Designer's Guide to the Apparel Industry. So that was a book about how to become a t-shirt designer and start your own clothing brand.
Sure.
I took everything I learned from 2005 to 2010 and collaborated with all these other t-shirt designers that I knew from that scene, and we put together the Bible essentially for anyone who wanted to get started with that. And that was another brilliant, amazing, fun project to work on. And of course it became very successful, and I'm so grateful for that success because it's not easy. I've written 2 books since that have not had nearly the traction that one did.
Sure.
And so I look back on it and thinking, wow, what a little piece in time that was too.
Yeah. Sure.
So after Threads Not Dead, I had this itch that I wanted to start a festival, start my own DIY music design film festival to bring together my favorite bands, my favorite artists and designers, and my favorite filmmakers.
Yeah.
And I called that Weapons of Mass Creation. And then that was in 2010 was the first year. And that sort of became my life for the next 5 years after that. I owned that and managed that and ran that for 5 years, with the help of Go Media and our staff and our volunteers, and through other people that became, integral parts in the festival. And that's still going on today, although I'm no longer involved in it at all anymore. I stepped down in 2015 when I left Go Media.
Yeah.
So, that was from post Brent to the point when I felt like I hit my midlife crisis or my spiritual awakening. That was that time.
Well, it's like you took a lot of the stuff that people hope to accomplish over a lifetime, and you sort of compressed it all into a period of like 10 or 15 years right there. Just like crammed it all in there.
I know, and I look back at that old self of mine, and I wonder how I did it. Like, man, either I was naive and I didn't know how the world works, and I just was doing things that happened to be good, I think there's an element of that, of innocence, of not knowing and just doing things.
Sure.
And that's my favorite part about it, is I was doing a lot of this because I liked to do it and I wanted to see it happen. And then what usually happens after that is there's a period of trying to make it popular, trying to get other people to like it. And there's like a marketing of it and a pushing of that. And that lasts for a while until that starts to kind of collapse in on itself, and it makes things terrible. It doesn't feel fun anymore. Right. You're trying to please everybody at that point.
Right.
It's now that you've created this festival or this book or this product for customers. Now they're all like demanding stuff from you. And then I got into the habit of trying to make everybody happy. And that's when I started to feel my burnout and like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm 5 years into this festival and I hate throwing it. And it was something I thought that it's something I really wanted to do. Something I loved. And I felt incredibly guilty to feel like I didn't want to be involved in my own passion anymore.
Well, you know, that festival, first of all, sounds amazing. I wish I'd known about it earlier. But, you know, I think there comes a time, you know, where everybody kind of gets to a point where it's just like too much of a good thing. And, you know, if your passion is no longer something that, you know, you wake up wanting to do, you know, then maybe it's time to take a break. And it sounds like that's what you did for a little while. Yeah.
Life came at me and it made me take a break, you know, like I was so burned out and I was taking naps in my car at work and was feeling like we would, at the annual meetings we would talk about our goals individually. We would go around the circle and everyone would talk about their goals. And my goals were, I don't want to have any goals. My goal is to have no goals. Like I was at the point where I just wanted to clear out all ambition for my life. I was tired of being an ambitious person. I wanted to be minimalist, you know, and get rid of all the clutter and just be without having to do anything. So I got into minimalism and meditation, Zen meditation, and a little bit of Buddhism. Started reading books about present moment and all of this stuff. And I was like, this is weird. I can't really talk about this with anybody. So I kind of kept it private and learned how to meditate when I was taking naps in my car. And then eventually I got through the meditation. I got more clarity and I was like, I need to quit. I need to like move on. And that was a really scary decision. I'm like, I can't quit my company. I'm going to disappoint everybody. I can't, people are going to think that I'm fucked up or wrong or messed up or hurting or depressed, and which I was. And I didn't want people to know, like, if I quit, what's wrong, Jeff? Why are you quitting Go Media? Why are you quitting WMC Fest?
Sure.
So I had a lot of fear about quitting, but you know, maybe 6 months to 9 months later, that feeling kept getting stronger and stronger, and I had to step down. So that's when I told everyone I needed to leave, and people understood. I didn't exactly have a clear destination to where I was going to go next. I just needed a break, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And right around that time is when I found out that my wife was having an affair, and that called into question all sorts of things about our marriage. And I'm like, oh man. So that became a thing. And then we ended up getting a divorce. And that was like, so now I'm leaving my company, and I'm leaving my marriage, and I'm clearing all of this stuff out of my life. All of it is disappearing. And then I'm being left with just me. And that was great. But then it's like all sorts of stuff comes up. Loneliness, existential feelings of what's my purpose? What am I doing on this planet? Why am I here? And that's when I started having out-of-body experiences and astral projection and getting into extraterrestrials and all this other weird stuff.
Yeah.
And, that was 2015. And then I took a road trip across the country and for about a month and a half and visited a bunch of different people. I called it the Starseed Tour because I got in. The Starseed relates to the extraterrestrial sort of origins of your soul and lots of things.
So I just have to ask, the out-of-body experiences, these kind of things, I mean, you say it very sort of matter-of-factly, you know, for a lot of people, this is not, you know, this is like a once-in-a-lifetime, if ever, kind of thing. I mean, what was that like? Like, you know, like an early experience of that? I mean, if you were going to explain it to someone who's like, you know, never like heard of it before or whatever, I mean, what was that like for you? Okay, so I'll tell you about the very first one that happened to me. So before I tell you what happened, I used to have these things called night terrors when I was a kid, and also throughout my adulthood. Sure. Like sleep paralysis or something. While I'm in the middle of the night, I would like have this episode where I feel like there's an evil presence in the room that I can't see. I know it's there. There's like a sense of knowing that it's there. It's like behind that doorway, and I can't move. And there's all this fear, terror, and it's like this. It feels like it's closing in on me, like it's going to consume me. Sure. And I'm resisting and fighting, but I can't move. And then sometimes I actually end up fighting it or like going after it or something like that in some way, or I feel this pressure on me. It's like consuming me. And I struggle, and I'm trying to call out for my wife to wake me up or whoever, you know.
And then she'll eventually wake me up, and then I feel like I snap out of it, and then I'm like, whoa, okay, what the fuck? You know, like I just had another episode. What is this? And I could feel it I could tell when it was going to happen, because I would try to fall back asleep, and then I would notice that as I drifted off to sleep, that fear would just start to come back up to me and like want to consume me.
Sure.
And I was afraid to fall asleep, and I would feel the tingly sensations in my body when it would happen too. And so I could recognize it when it's happening. Now, with the meditation I was doing, I started to become mindful of my thoughts and emotions and feelings and be present with myself.
Yeah.
So I thought, next time I have one of those episodes, what if I just like meditated during it, or like, you know, was calm instead of trying to resist it, and just let it happen.
Yeah.
And surrender to it, essentially.
Sure.
And be an observer of the experience rather than be in the experience.
Right, sure.
And so I was like laying on the couch one day, and my wife was getting ready for work, and it was still in the morning, and I'm waiting for her to be done getting ready out of the bathroom so I can go in there, or, you know, we were going to leave for work. And I was just drifting off and on the couch, and then I felt the signs, you know, like the sort of collapsing feeling or the vibrations that happened in my body. And I was like, oh, and instead of like shaking up or waking myself out of it, I just like noticed it and let it happen. And then it just like, that fear went away immediately. And then I felt like the sensation of me falling out of my body really slowly, like a mist. And then I felt like my presence, my vision was like down by the coffee table, like underneath the couch, you know, so it's like this really low viewpoint. And then at some point I snapped back and I'm standing up, and I knew I was out of my body, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck? I'm like out of my body, like aware, conscious. And I was excited about it. And I ran down the hallway to try to tell my wife, and I ended up running through her like a ghost, like just kind of passed through her body without colliding into it. And then I got really turned on, sexually excited for some reason, and then I woke up. That was my experience. And waking up, I just opened my eyes on the couch and was like, what the fuck was that? That was cool. Like, I remember everything that just happened. And then I went in and tell my wife about it, and she's like, she was none the wiser. She doesn't know anything that happened. So that was my first experience that got me excited and interested in researching it.
Wow. So that during that time you were asleep, but you could sort of see your own body, kind of thing?
It's almost like I didn't fall asleep yet. Okay. I was like in the process of falling asleep. And I think what happened, the body fell asleep. My conscious mind was still active and aware. Yeah. And I felt the astral body, like you can call it the dream body, if you will, like separate from my physical body. And I didn't look to see if my body was there or anything like that. I didn't think about it. I have done that in other out-of-body experiences, but this one I didn't. But I knew that it was an out-of-body experience. It was not a dream, like I'm used to having dreams. Sure. Because I felt like I was more there than I normally was, because I'm aware of it at the same time. Right. So like a lucid dream, right? You're aware that you're dreaming, but you're still in it. Right. You don't wake up. Then you have a different way of interacting with that reality. And you're like, wait, if I'm dreaming and this is not reality, then why do I feel like I'm interacting with it in the way I wouldn't normally interact? Like, this is solid. This is, I can change things. So that's how the out-of-body experience is. Yeah. I mean, did you feel like you were sort of like there was like volitional control? Like you could choose where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do in there? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so that, I think the meditation helped me become aware enough to become aware when I'm falling asleep, to that part of my brain that got worked out and strong during the meditation. It's also strong and aware during sleep time, during dream time. So you're no longer unconscious. You can be conscious. So you can be dreaming consciously, technically, or traveling astrally, if you want to call it the same thing. Gotcha. Yeah. So it's very much your conscious presence is there. Now, depending on how conscious you are in your day-to-day life, that's how much you're bringing to these experiences too. So the more awake you get in day-to-day life, and the more awake you are there, because I can run around in my astral or in that out-of-body state and do things. Mm-hmm. To the extent that I remember to do things, and the extent that I have ideas and desires and questions. Right. Yeah. So, because the experiences don't last very long. Mm-hmm. I mean, depending on how long you can maintain it. If you get too excited, you'll get away. You'll it'll break out and you'll open your eyes in your physical body.
Right. So is this something that sort of subsequently you found that would just sort of happen on its own for reasons that you didn't entirely understand, or was it something that you had some control over, and like when and where it would happen?
Both. It would happen by itself sometimes, but then I did a lot of practice intentionally, like daily practice to try to make it happen, to try to induce it intentionally.
Uh-huh.
And I did have some success. I figured out how to do it. So I would intend that I'm going to have an out-of-body experience, and then I would either, so at night, for example, I'd go to sleep and I would be like reading about it all the time and writing about it in my journals. So my mind is saturated with this stuff. And then I would wake up 4 hours after I went to sleep. So I'd set my alarm for the middle of the night, basically. So I would get some REM sleep. I would get really relaxed. I would fall asleep, right? And I would wake up and I would busy myself for a little bit, like go out, get a glass of water, meditate for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, and then go back to bed and then lay there still on my back and just try to wait for myself to have one.
Sure.
And sometimes I'd be waiting for an hour and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
And then I would say, fuck it. And then I'd say, this is not going to happen. And I'd roll over and wait till the next day. But sometimes after I would say, fuck it, and roll over, I'd actually start to fall asleep because I'm not thinking about it.
Uh-huh.
And then I would feel the vibrations. There's like this buzzing that happens in my body,
mm-hmm.
and like a pressure in my ears that starts to change. And then I'm like, those are the signs. And when I feel those signs, it's like, it just means surrender. It means give up control, stop controlling, stop trying to do anything.
Uh-huh.
Let it happen.
Right.
And I would like fall through the bed or whatever.
Huh. So, I mean, it sounds like, this was all happening in a fairly tumultuous period in your life. I mean, would you say that all these experiences that you were having, were they helpful in various ways?
I felt they were extremely helpful.
Yeah.
They were so interesting. And you're right, though. This stuff was happening during a very stressful, tumultuous period in my life. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. Because some people say that these experiences are like dissociative. They're like post PTSD, like you're like being blown out of your own body.
Sure.
It's like there's some sort of trauma that has happened.
Right.
But the experiences didn't feel traumatic for me. They felt like super empowering, super joyful and positive. And like I felt like my soul or my guides or whoever it is helping me.
Yeah.
And I would literally feel help from other entities too. Like say if I was surrendering and I couldn't get out, I would literally feel a hand hold my hand and pull me out. Like I'm like, whoa, this is like a man's hand. It's like rough. I feel it. Yeah. And it's pulling me out of my own body. And so like I had help from other entities, or maybe it's just me in some other dimension.
Right.
I don't know.
Helping you get out of your own head, I guess, right? I mean, it's sort of in more ways than one. Yeah. Flash forward a few years. I mean, so these kinds of things, I mean, has that changed your life, in the present? Well,
it definitely helped me question reality and learn that I'm so much more than my physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me in tune with a deeper dimension of my subconscious. It got me paying attention to my dreams a lot more and started to communicate with my subconscious of like, I have a desire and curiosity about that part of myself. So it's also giving me stuff to work with.
So you're sort of being able to tap into it a little bit easier.
Yeah, there's a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I got deeper in touch with my soul. And so my experiences where I'm not doing very much, like lately, but I feel like my existence feels more meaningful, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me on a path of self-love and self-healing.
Uh-huh.
And so I feel like I've just been guided to people and experiences that are helping me heal a lot of my old childhood stuff that has come up.
Sure.
That I was maybe I was surpassing or like flying over in my 20s.
Yeah.
Now that stuff that I'm giving myself space and time and distraction free, a lot of the stuff wants to come up to be healed and resolved. Old habitual patterns of and things that happened to me when I was a kid that I probably did not think about are starting to come up. And so the past few years has been a path of healing.
Yeah.
And so I've been feeling a lot of hardship and a lot of suffering, but it's only because I'm choosing to feel the emotions that maybe I suppressed or ignored when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so like now I'm embracing those emotions and sadness and loneliness and surrendering to it all. And it's just taking me on a really interesting journey because of all of that. And I don't know where I'm going. And that's why I still think that it's like, where is this taking me? I don't know. I feel like I'm co-creating and riding along in my life at the same time that I'm controlling it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're figuring yourself out. Some people don't do that until they're, in their 50s or 60s, and they go buy a Porsche and, whatever. And
right. Yeah. That's the typical midlife crisis.
Right. Yeah. So.
Well, I like to call mine just an awakening, and I think it coincided a lot with 2012. You'd hear about like 2012, the end of the world, the end of the Mayan calendar.
We were actually, my wife and I were actually in Guatemala at the time, and we were doing sort of like a delayed honeymoon, but they had a whole, like, they definitely capitalized on the whole Mayan, end of the world kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah. So it was interesting to kind of see it from their perspective. But yeah, I mean, I didn't actually sort of know about it until, like, I think I'd heard about it, but before that, but I mean, I never really paid much attention to it. So yeah.
Yeah, because that was December 2012. That was when the world was supposed to end. Right. And then here we are living in 2017, right? So it technically didn't end. But what happened is that was like an end of a what they call like a Kali Yuga or an era or whatever it is, a period of time, like this dark age. And now we're entering this new age, technically, of the next several thousand years, which is going to be a path of light and truth. And so whereas before we were in this sort of era of darkness, it's like now we're kind of the seasons are changing on like a 1,000-year scale. Sure. So we're just in a new season. And so that I think maybe it's just coincidental that I started to have these realizations and awakenings and now all of a sudden a fascination with truth. And I've always been a fascination with authenticity and realness and I think I gravitate towards that, but now I have more conscious awareness of that desire.
Sure. Yeah.
So now I'm on this path of truth. And so that leads me down to find out the truth of who I am, why I'm here on this planet, where's my soul come from? Why did I choose to incarnate onto Earth? What am I doing here? I'm very strongly aware that I have a purpose here, and I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm constantly getting messages and downloads. And then there's like relationships I have with my spirit guides that I always knew, but now I'm like more aware of.
Sure.
And also getting in and questioning all the different religions and all the different programs and dogmas and belief systems that people have, and even politics and atheism and science and all this stuff, and how there's elements of falsehood and lies and all of that. Sure. And learning how to get back to truth and trusting your own intuition. And realizing that you are the universe, essentially, in a little package here, in human form, and you have all of the answers. And getting back into touch with nature and everything like that. I don't know. It's crazy what's happening with me and several others. Online. If you look it up, there's like lots of people going through these changes.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I know the patches that you make for your company, the Starseed. Patches and stuff like that. Was that something that was that something that was sort of directly influenced by these experiences as a kind of way of like finding other people who were sort of like-minded in this way, or is it just something like, I need to put some lunch on the table. I got to find a way to make a living out of this. But I mean, how did that come about? So
I was on my Starseed road trip tour, and I had made a stop in Columbus, Ohio, before I really ventured out to the rest of the country. Sure. And my friends there who let me stay there, they have a company called These Are Things, and they make patches and pins, and they're really, really good at it. They make a ton of them, and they're super talented designers. And so when I stayed with them, I was like, man, these are so cool. I want one. and I had a denim jacket that I just bought, and I was like, here, I want you guys to put these on my jacket. And you just I got to pick and choose some of the ones that I liked from their collection that they've made. And I was like, I want to make these. And then halfway through my trip, I started to get ideas for patches and pins. And that's when I started sketching and coming up with these ideas. And it was kind of fun and playful because I was like, I'm going to make a starseed patch, and I'm going to make like an alien patch, and the things that I'm interested in. So there's an element of play, an element of just fun, doing it for fun.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know how I was going to sell it. I was like, I'm just going to come up with 3 patches, and I posted them on my blog with like a Gumroad link to buy. And I sold a couple, and I was like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And I just kept getting more visions for more things I wanted to do. And, and I put it on Etsy, and I had a Shopify store, and I had other ways because I did need money. I did want to make a living out of this. Mm-hmm. And I started vending at some events in Texas where I was living. Mm-hmm. And doing all right, but the Etsy store just started to take off by itself. You know, the search algorithms were good enough, and my patches were pretty specific. It's very easy to understand what the product is.
Right. Yeah.
There it is. You want
right
it
there. Yeah.
Yeah. You want. I don't have to really sell it or tell you what it does. So, and it's been generating. You know, it's been going up ever since. I mean, it's not making me rich or anything like that, but it's still fun and enjoyable, and that's really what I'm focusing on.
Right. Yeah.
Keeping it fun, keeping it light.
It's almost like it's going back to like the days when you were making the Brent films and stuff like that. It's like, you know, this is something that's fun and enjoyable, and you know.
Yeah, and I think that's really key. That's key of all of it. You know, your success is really predicated on how much fun and enjoyment you have while doing it, because that energy that you have is like imbued in your products. Like Brent's energy is imbued in his music, and it's like people pick up on it subconsciously. Now, if I made my patches thinking about how do I make money? Oh, this like new age market is kind of trendy. I'm going to try to like do that. I think it would just have a darker feel to it. People pick up on it, and I would have to try extra hard to try to sell it.
It's more pressure too. You know,
it is.
Yeah, that's that whole vocation avocation thing is, I think, a nice idea. But I'm pretty happy I have a day job. You know, that the creative stuff I do. If someone doesn't like it, that's cool. You know, whatever. Like, you know, just kind of do it, and a lot of it's for me. If other people want to come along for the ride, that's awesome too. You know. Mm-hmm. And I think it's tough. You know, I know many other full-time musicians and authors and stuff like that, and often, you know, artists, and they kind of feel like they're my impression is feel like they're sort of under the gun, you know, to not only to do something that they feel like kind of congruent with, but also to, you know, to make a living off of it. And,
yeah, that's very true, and it's hard to keep the joy in it when you're relying on it to support you, and you have to make money with it. Then you feel like you can't really do as many risks or try the things you want to try. Yeah,
and you know, I don't know if you've had these experiences. I mean, you know, the times when you're sitting at one of those like conventions or whatever, and you're trying to sell your stuff, and you know, like a lot of people walk by and they don't even look at it, and they don't buy it and stuff like that. And if you put out $50 or whatever it is for a table and you sell nothing, it's like, wow, that's. You know, you know.
Oh yeah, that happens for sure. That's, you know, I oscillate between these two different emotions. I feel like I want to be invisible. I don't want to be bothered, but then I want people to see me at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do I have this feeling? I want people to see me, but then I don't want people to see me. I don't know. It's a strange feeling that I have when I'm bending tables. But I know that the people that do come and they do find resonance with it.
Yeah.
They have a specific. They're drawn to it, and that's what I want. I want the people that are like, ooh. I came here, and this is exactly what I needed. I've had a few of those people stop at my table and say, I just felt called to come here today, and I found your stuff, and oh, this is so great. This is exactly what I came here for. And then we have a conversation. That's usually what ends up happening is we get into deep conversation, and then they feel like, holy shit, like I've never been understood so much by somebody, you know. I must have these products or something. You know, and then we become friends on Instagram or Facebook, or maybe we never interact again. But that's what really makes me happy is those little meaningful interactions.
Yeah.
And I, at this point, I've done a lot of work on my own money issues and fears. And I have to say that I'm not really as concerned about money as I used to be. Like I can get by on pretty little. And then also at the same time, I just know that I'm going to be supported. Like my job is not necessarily to freak out about where my money's coming from. Mm-hmm. It always ends up coming to me somehow, some way. And you know, I did not incarnate into Earth to micromanage my finances.
Yeah.
So that's not how I really want to spend my time.
Good way of looking at it. Yeah. Who really?
I just let it happen a little bit looser than probably somebody else would who's running a business. So I'm a little loose with that stuff. You know, I just trust that it's always going to be there. And that's kind of how I live my life. It's probably why I gravitate towards a business partner who loves to micromanage the finances because I just can't do it. I'm just like, no, I'm more of the dreamer, the creator, you know, just the loosey-goosey sort of visionary person.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I mean, you had mentioned that you recently just got back from a trip from Europe, right? Just going through Europe for a couple months, and which is definitely very cool. I mean, it kind of lends itself towards that sort of thing. I mean, inspiration and you know, trying to get by on as little funds as possible and that kind of thing. But you know, what was that experience like? Yeah,
well, I'd known I'd wanted to go to Europe. The desire started to pop into my field maybe about 2 years ago. Oh, I kind of want to travel. I kind of want to go international and see what that's like, you know, but I would get that little hit every once in a while, not so much, you know, and then, but around October of last year, I started to get that really strong. That voice was like, I need to get out of Austin. I'm done with Austin. I need to go somewhere else. Where am I going to go? And Europe, that's the only thing I could think of. Go travel Europe. Now you're going to have the freedom and the time. A year before that, I was reading books about vagabonding. I was reading books about international travel and people who live this digital nomad lifestyle. But at that time, I wasn't even ready to take off. I wasn't ready to do it. So now I'm getting the feeling that now is the time. But I didn't have a destination to go to. So I had been putting signs out or asking questions like, okay, give me a sign. Show me where I need to go. And then I met this really hot Instagram model who was from Germany.
That was good.
And we actually started to talk. I thought, I was really attracted to her. And there's so many Instagram models, right? But this one in particular, I felt like I had a resonance with. She was into occulty, witchcraft, and spiritual stuff. And I asked her if she wanted to model starseed supply for me and tag my products in her pictures. And
that's a good idea.
Actually, it was crazy because at the time someone told me that if you want to get more traction on your products, get pretty girls to model your clothes, your patches. And I was like, okay. So then I just went to Instagram, found some pretty girls. I'm like, this feels sort of weird. I'm not used to this. And then I messaged them and I got some replies, and that's how I ended up connecting with this one girl. Yeah. And then she, instead of wanting my patches, she wanted my book. She's like, I really resonate with that book. Something about it. It seems exactly like what I need to read. I was like, okay, so I sent her Make Her Mistake Her. So that's the latest book that I've written. Gotcha. Well, it's actually all of my blog articles from the past 3 years, like consolidated into a book. Gotcha. So I sent that to her, and she and I shared many meaningful emails back and forth because of the book. And I was like, oh, who is this girl? I got to meet her. So that's when I was like, well, I'm going to go to Germany. That'll be the first place I go. Now, the fucked up thing is I never actually ended up meeting her. Man. She ended up canceling plans or having stuff come up. Everything kept getting in the way of us actually meeting. But here I am. Now I'm in Germany. Like, I got here. So, like, I needed that little kick in the ass of, like, attraction, of, like, chasing a girl or something to kind of get me over the fear of, I had a lot of fears about what it's like to fly abroad, what it's going to be like when I land. I don't know how anything works over there. But if I have a friend, it makes things so much easier. Like a person that can be my anchor. Like, oh, I know you. You're a real person. I can touch you. I'm safe, Yeah. So I had that. I had somebody that inspired me to get over there. And I think that's what her role was in my life, was just to lure me over. Like, come on.
There was this thing in like this book. I think it was like this. I think it was called like Think and Grow Rich. It's like written a long time ago. But the author in there, and I never really actually understood it until you mentioned that. He was like, what you want to do is like you want to take all this like sexual energy that you have, and even if you can't necessarily use it in your day-to-day life, you want to translate into something that's going to be more sort of long-lasting and using it for, I don't know, creativity or whatever. So that sounds like kind of an example of that, of using like
true. I've heard that too. And then when I try to channel it into my creativity consciously, like my sexual energy, it doesn't seem to work.
Right. I never really understood.
I didn't do that when I was a kid.
Yeah. I mean, unless you go into porn or something like that. But I mean, that seems like that's an example of when it like kind of happened like by itself without you having to like force it.
It's true. And I think there's something to that, because my best creativity comes when I'm like in love, right? When I'm in love with my life and my friends and I've got a partner or something, I just naturally want to create. Maybe it's because I feel safe enough and I feel loved that all these other needs are met. Now I just want to make something. Yeah. Because I'm rooted, I'm grounded. But if I don't have any of that stuff and my survival needs are sort of questionable, I can't create. I'm not in the mood to design or write a song when I'm like worried about where I belong in the world or worried about where I'm living. Yeah,
where your next meal is coming from.
So the past 3 months I was in Europe, traveled all around backpacking, staying at different Airbnbs and occasionally a hostel, and got to see some nature and explore. And really, my only goal was to do it, get over the fear, get over the hump. Once I got there, I was drawn to seeing some castles and going to see some beautiful nature. Mm-hmm. And I did that, and I wanted to see how long I could last. I didn't really have too much of a goal. Yeah. I wanted to see how long I could last. I ended up lasting for 3 months before I felt really compelled to come back home.
Yeah, it's a pretty long time. I mean, which countries did you go to visit?
I did Germany for a few weeks, and then made my way down to Italy through Switzerland and the Brentumentary Express, like scenic railroad. Uh-huh. And then after I spent some time in northern Italy, hiking around there, I went to Scotland and then to Ireland, where I spent a month there in Ireland. I saw a lot of Ireland, actually, quite a bit of it. And then I went to Finland and then came home.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so I had maybe 2, 3, 4 different girls that I interacted with in that European trip that all seemed to guide me or do something to me or heal me in some way or interact with, change me. And so those are pretty significant and meaningful. And then the one in Finland was a really fucked up, weird interaction. It was like, I knew we were meant to be together in some sort of way, but we triggered each other like crazy. And when we left, it was one of the most awkward goodbyes. I thought it'd be sentimental and like sweet, but it was so awkward. And then but I knew I had to come home at that point. I was like, I'm done with Europe. Get me out of here. And that's a good sign when you're ready to do the next thing. You know for sure.
There's I don't know if you ever read anything by Tim Ferriss or.
I did read 4 Hour Work
Week, where he talks about that whole kind of thing. I mean, sort of. I don't know if you were still sort of managing the patch sort of thing from the company and stuff like that remotely, or that was all sort of handed over to somebody else. But you were kind of doing that. I mean, in a lot of ways, that sort of. Yeah,
I know, that's true. I mean, I did have passive income from from my books that I've written and some of the other design products that I've made. And then the patches, my mom said she would take care of shipping while I was gone.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, it saves me the time. I don't have to carry it with me. So I was going to actually put it on hold and not even do it while I was traveling. But I was like, okay. And she wanted to do it because she wanted to learn how to use Etsy. So
okay, gotcha, yeah.
She's like sort of my intern. And once I taught her how to do it, she's like, oh, I got this. And she did it reliably. And I was very happy. I'm like, whoa, sweet. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, you found people that were supportive. And so, I mean, Tim and I actually went to school together. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but we used to actually b-boy together. So that's how that whole thing happened. But one of the things that I remember when his stuff was kind of first coming out, reading it, and it kind of seemed like, I don't think I entirely understood at the time, but one of the things I kind of took from it is that, so many people go through their lives and they feel kind of stuck and, like trapped in many ways. And he was kind of, I think because it was also a personal journey for him, but helping, wanting to have other people let him, know that you actually can make some changes in your life. It may not necessarily be comfortable or easy or all that kind of stuff, but, it might be a little bit easier than you think if you actually just go try it. That was a kind of a neat message, and I don't think everybody is able to capitalize on it. But it sounds like you were able to do some of that. So
yeah, when I read 4 Hour Work Week, right after that is when I started writing Threads Not Dead. So that was when I wrote my first book. Was right after reading 4 Hour Work Week. Yeah. I was like, he makes it sound so easy. All right, I got this. I can just get like all these people that know stuff and interview them and then put a book together.
Yeah.
Turned out to be a lot more work. But the thing is, I started it, that
you did it.
He made it seem easy enough for me to start it and get over the fear of starting it.
Right.
And that's all I needed, because once I got going, my problem solving brain kicks in and starts like solving problems and getting me from the next step each way. Starting is often the hardest part, so take advantage of like whatever gives you that kick, like if a girl is alluring you to where your desires want to take you, you're like, I want to get over to Europe. And so, I shouldn't be chasing a girl. And it's like, no, just go over there. Let it happen.
Yeah. Who knows where it'll take you.
And then, I never ended up hanging out with her anyway, but she, I'm very grateful that, and that's actually how I got to Austin too, was there was a few, girls that were good friends with me, a very meaningful connection. And they, I was like, where do I move next? They're like, come to Austin. And I was like, yeah, you know what? When I toured Austin on my trip, I really liked it. So, but then I ended up not hanging out with them as much as I thought I would. I thought I would be back in a circle of friends that I wanted, but really they were just there to guide me, because the journey I'm on is a solo journey right now.
Sure.
I believe, I'm getting closer to my inner self. And so I've had to deal with a lot of those fears of loneliness and not having that circle of friends and that feeling of connection.
Yeah. Well, people say that, you have to be, it's best to be friends with yourself before you can be friends with other people. I don't know if that's always necessarily the case, but it certainly does make it a little easier.
It seems like that's what adults tell themselves, because the kids don't seem to worry about it. They just naturally have friends and they just do stuff. Like, so I look back at my kid self, that was a little bit more naive and didn't have so many of these issues. And of course, you're friends with people that you're going to school with. You're friends with people that you're interacting with, or your neighbors, or people that you probably wouldn't choose consciously if you wanted to be friends with them, but you are by proximity.
Sure.
So, I mean, one thing, if you're by yourself a lot, you're not really doing stuff with other people. So making friends on a solo journey is kind of tough.
Yeah. No, definitely difficult. I don't know. I think the other thing is that, as you watch kind of people getting older and stuff like that, like, it seems like all those interests that they had when they were a kid, it's sort of like it sort of gradually funnels down or gets pared away or just sort of discarded, as they kind of get older. Obviously, busy with their job and kids and, relationships and all those like adult kind of things, But, you think about like what you did with your friends with your kid, you maybe this is more true of guys, you got together and you sort of did something together, and
Yeah. I noticed that lately I've been attracted to more female friends. I'm just attracted to women in general a lot more. I'm divorced now, so I'm a little bit girl crazy, so to speak.
Sure.
It's been like, now the gloves are off, so to speak. There's not, I can interact with women with a different type of energy now. It's totally cool.
Yeah.
I've just been attracted to that, and it's also been providing me lots of lessons in healing. But when I have a lot of guy friends, it's because of what I'm doing typically.
Yeah.
We're doing it together. We're playing in a band. We are making something together, making videos, making music, working together. And that seems to be where I manifest my more masculine friends, is what I'm doing, which is the masculine characteristic. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I find that pretty interesting. And right now I have a desire to not do as much. So I've been attracting a much more feminine energy, which is more nurturing and healing and emotional and feeling and all of that. And that's what I've been doing a lot the past 2 years. So I don't know. I think this year, starting to get back into wanting to create discipline and structure and, get more into the Tim Ferriss, hyper masculine, get shit done, attitude. I don't know. We'll see where that's coming.
Right.
Comes in waves.
Totally. I mean, I do have to ask you, I mean, I don't know if you still do that, but there was on your YouTube channel or whatever, I saw there was a whole bunch of like b-boy vids and stuff like that you put up. How did you get into all that? I mean,
so the breakdancing thing happened when I was with my circle of friends back in, the early 2000s.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So when I started making my own music, I would bring it to our little parties that we would have. And when one of the kids had a sound system in his basement and like a little light, like a disco light. And so he intended to have like club dance, parties down there with the girls or whatever. But what it ended up happening was me and a couple of my other guy friends just turned it into breakdance practice. And I think a friend of mine showed me the 6-step.
Yeah.
So we would do all sorts of popping and weird kind of things. And my friend showed me the 6-step that he had learned. And I was like, whoa, I want to know how to do that. Whatever that is cool.
Right.
I want that. And I got obsessed with it. I started looking online. And I guess before YouTube had videos, there was like forums and b-boy forums. And there were video sites with b-boy videos. And I would watch them and be like, oh my God, how do I do that? How do I do that?
Right.
And me and my friend, we would get into it. And I would make songs, breakbeat type songs, and then I would play them really loud on the speaker, and we would dance to it. Yeah. I mean, so it was enjoyable. I'm creating music, and I'm dancing to it specifically for that. So that's when I got into b-boy, and then I made an animated video for my film production class in my senior year of college, and I involved a CG animated breakdancer, and I was dancing with it.
Available to view anywhere online?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. I think it's probably one of the very first videos I ever posted.
Okay.
So this was me, 2004. I wasn't a terribly good breakdancer at all, but I mean, it's interesting. It's an artifact, right?
Yeah.
And that where did that lead from there? Oh, once I got moved in with my fiance. I lost touch with most of those friends.
Yeah. And
breakdancing started to take a back seat. And then I got back into it. I was trying to work out. I was feeling out of shape, and I tried to go into the gym. I tried getting a personal trainer. None of that was interesting. And then I finally was like, I want to go to a breakdance class and like learn from a real b-boy. That would be kind of cool. And so I found one in Ohio, and I ended up taking his class for 4 years and being sort of involved in, regular weekly breakdance practice with him. And now the funny thing was, there were, most of the kids in the class were kids, like 8 or 9 years old. Yeah. And I'm like 28 learning how to breakdance with these kids, and all the moms are watching, Right. I was really out of place. But I was right where I wanted to be, though. So that's when I started doing the Breakdance 52, which was I was attempting to put a breakdance video practice every week online.
Okay, one a week, yeah.
I only got 9 weeks into it before I just ran out of steam and couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. Because the video recording and editing was a pain in the ass. Yeah, I just wanted to dance. Yeah. And it's really hard to dance by yourself when you're breakdancing, honestly. Yeah. It's a group thing. You feed off each other's energy. When you're trying to practice by yourself, it's just like a workout. Like, it's just kind of boring. And
yeah. No, I totally know what you mean. There was a group of guys I would practice with when we were living in New England, and since we moved, I haven't found that. It's just it's so much harder to do it by yourself. As you get older, it just, things hurt more, and it just Yeah,
I know. I still really like it. And there was a girl I met in Austin, Texas, really magical relationship. I mean, I have a great fondness for her. And then we were all hitting it off and everything. And then I found out that she likes to break dance. It's like, what? That's a bonus. Yeah. And then we had, okay, let's go practice. And then we go practice. Then we go out to the club and we're dancing. I'm like, holy shit, she's a B-girl. Like, she knows what she's doing. Yeah. And we really got to, we jammed together, so she brought that out. When I have someone who's into it, as much as me, then it's like, we feed off each other, and I get so excited, and I want to do more moves and overexert myself.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? Otherwise, it's just sort of like gymnastics, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's the best. I mean, it's hard to find that. So I know I'm much less motivated to practice, now versus when I had people like around where you can, and it's so much harder to make progress too, I found.
And these kids are getting so good now. Yeah. There's so much more like. The moves that these people are learning at an earlier age, I'm like, I can't do that. I'm just starting to get the windmill, and these people are doing air flares and air tracks and one-handed air flares and everything. I'm like, oh my god, we just stop. No, but it's cool. Like, these kids that can put in the time and the energy, and they can really do it. But I guess I've reached the point where I no longer feel envious of these kids, because I'm just like, you know what, you're gonna fly right past me. I'm just gonna stick with what I know and what I like, and be one of those old b-boys now that just does his little thing, and everyone's like, oh, look at that old guy that just did something.
It's all about top rock in the end anyway, right?
That's true. You got to have the style in the top rock.
It's kind of funny, like I was when I was in college, a similar kind of thing, group of friends, we started a club that's still active where I went to college now, and that's like a long time ago, and it's kind of cool to see it and to talk about it, with people who are still kind of doing it and current and very like, they go to the battles and all that kind of stuff, and they're very sort of into it and living that. And so it just, I don't know, it's kind of like one of those things, even though it definitely makes me feel like an old man when like my back hurts after like, doing a couple minutes of it or something like that, so.
I know, but I think it's good. The top rock, it really does a good cardio exercise. So you can just top rock every day. I think that'd be pretty healthy, pretty good. It's not going to hurt you too bad. Yeah. But again, finding the people to do it with, that's where you get the enjoyment from. Yeah. And me and my friend, she would say, like, guys, when they're breakdancing together, it's like they're like little boys having fun in grown men's bodies. Yeah. It's like you don't get to see men in that state of joy and like sort of competition, but it's joyful competition usually and fun. You don't get to see men in that state, really.
No,
very much.
Really. Yeah, I often, it's kind of interesting. Like, I think a lot of guys get into it for this kind of thing, like, oh, I want to learn how to do flares or whatever. This sort of like, or I want to be like, center of attention at a club, or like want to pick up chicks doing this or whatever. They have a very specific purpose in learning how to do it, and it's kind of funny because like I notice a lot of times women will get into it because they just like to dance. Like to move their bodies and have fun, and it's coming from sort of a different place, and maybe less about like getting specific moves, but on the other hand, it's kind of more like it almost feels like that may be a little bit more sustainable, over the kind of long course, because you can always kind of do that, even if you can't necessarily do whatever X, Y, or Z move anymore because you got older. So
oh yeah, totally. I mean, if you do get it, I mean, the thing is, men will get into breakdancing because they think they're going to get a girl. There could be sex on the other end of this, like a better opportunity.
Right.
So, you know, that motivates men so much to do things. But then next thing you know, they're hooked on b-boying.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like competing. Then they forget about the girls. And b-boying becomes their life.
The whole thing,
you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, the girl just got them involved. And
Right.
that's what started it. So it's like, this is the same thing. Girl gets me to go to Germany, blah, 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 blah. You know, so they're always leading us in one direction or the other. But, well, I think they inspire us, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what a man is going to go to great lengths, you know, to get the attention of a woman in a lot of ways and show off what he can do.
Yeah, it's kind of biological, right? If you look at the mating dances that, you know, birds do or whatever, the female, whatever it is sitting there on a branch just watching the male birds make asses of themselves running around doing their thing, right? And, you know, she picks like the one she likes the best. I guess that's what we do, but it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once you get into it, you realize that it's fun by itself, and then your own feminine comes out, and you'd like to dance, you'd like to move and feel the rhythm of the music, which, you know, a feminine thing, but there's the masculine essence to it as well. I think it's very balanced.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
I mean, it's very balanced. That's why I feel like b-boying is so fun and pure. It's my kind of dance. I tried doing partner dancing. I couldn't do it because they said there's so many rules, and I had to have rigid shoulders and like do this and do that. And I just wanted to be like, you know, just pop and whatever. And like, don't do that.
Right.
I'm not supposed to do it. I'm like, but that's what the music's making me want to do. No, can't do it. Have these rules.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with because when I was in college, we would do shows and stuff like that. You know, it's hard to just b-boy the entire time, like for an hour or 2 hours. You just can't do it. You know, just an open session, what kind of thing. It doesn't really. It gets boring for people who don't necessarily. That's not really their thing. So they were inevitably like choreographed kind of stuff that you'd have to do. I hated it.
Did you?
Yeah, the choreography, like, because it was so kind of like you had to do it on a specific count. It felt so kind of rigid, and I just had a lot of trouble with it. I was like, well, I just kind of want to do something else here, and for better or for worse, a lot of other people were like that too. And there was always somebody who would kind of like be the one who was trying to organize us and trying to organize like a bunch of like almost like rowdy school children are trying to herd cats, you know, trying to get them to stay on count and on beat and follow the music. Whereas, you know, we just want to run around and, you know.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You get the different aspects, right? You know, you try to choreograph it, and I mean, you're putting on a performance for other people. And so there's like, you're almost removing a lot of your own, like you're performing now, you know, it's not like you're not just dancing for yourself, you're performing and then trying to get it right. And I did a few of those, and the pressure I feel, oh my God, it's like, you know, I'm so nervous before a show, and it's like, I've practiced and rehearsed, I know my parts, but like, you know, there's an audience and people are waiting, and then it's like, you can't mess up. You know, the hardest thing is you got to be on time. You can't fuck it up. It's like, there's so much pressure. Yeah. But afterward, I usually feel pretty elated that I got through it. But man, I do not like the nerves that I feel before a show like that. It's like, it's too much pressure. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was me. And because it was in the environment of recital, you know, dance school, like impress people, wow people.
Right.
And I don't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, I think I hear you. I think at the time I couldn't have expressed it, you know, kind of like you did. It wasn't until years later that I kind of figured out why it felt kind of constricting or whatever. Although I very much appreciate people who can do like hip hop choreography and stuff like that. I mean, you know, it wasn't for me. So.
Is it, in a way, it's like writing a song, right? You know, you write a script for a song that you perform over and over again, as opposed to just jamming in the moment.
Yeah, you know, I still have a lot of trouble with that. I don't know. You know, you make music as well, and I find for me, like when I'm trying to record something, it takes forever. I'm trying to follow the beat or whatever. Whereas if I'm just like, you know, at a keyboard or a guitar or something like that, and it kind of can flow from there. It just becomes so much easier. But when I try to sort of do it in sort of steps and layers and stuff like that, that's a lot harder. I don't know if you have a similar experience, but
I just know that when I took hip hop dance class and it was mostly choreography, I did not like it as much. It felt like a lot of memory. I had to memorize so much stuff,
Yeah.
And I mean, it was cool to learn some moves and stuff, because I think even in breakdancing, you kind of have to chain together sort of patterns, and your muscle memory gets used to doing moves linking together. But it was too much choreography and not enough freestyle for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You know, can you tell us a little bit about, you know, you mentioned breakbeats and stuff like that. Can you tell, I know you still have, your music is still available to listen to on your website and so forth. Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of you?
Yeah, I mean, the music has always been a thread of my life under all of these changes, right? Under everything I've been through, the music always is something that I can come back to and I make. So now I'm going by the alias Starbound Renegade, and you can find me on Spotify. I've got 2 albums up there, and it's basically the music I've created the past 4 years. And I got into, I've always been inspired by sort of the retro synth video game chiptune stuff, and that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that was more creating the chiptune sound where it sounds like video games like NES or Commodore 64.
Sure.
But I combine it with my love of punk rock and breakbeats and like funk. So you don't really see the realistic drums in like these chiptune or synthwave music, but I am a drummer, so I usually incorporate realistic sounding drums in all of my tracks. And since I'm not singing, I'm kind of recreating punk rock or emo screamo parts with synths in some of my new tracks. And so like, you know, so Stranger Things came out on Netflix, and I was super inspired by the soundtrack and by the vibe of everything, that I wanted to create something in that vein. So, but I took one of my favorite songs from 2003 from Taking Back Sunday, the emo band back in the day, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to create this in the synthwave sound. So like I took the vocals. I love the dual vocals that they would do. One guy would sing, and the other guy would sing. They would round it out together. They would, you know, 2 different voices. And I was like, what if there were 2 different synths and they played on each other like that? And so I just, instead of creating voice, I used the synths to create the voice melodies and then the realistic drums. So it's like I'm trying to be in a band, but I'm just playing synths with it. And that's where my music kind of comes out. It's like a combination between retro synthwave, punk rock, and like funk, dance, EDM, trap, hip hop.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know this is constricting, but you know, they always want you to pick a category and stuff like that for what your music kind of is. Is that, do you use all those different sort of genres together, or do you tell people like I mainly do X, Y, or Z? And then
I haven't given it one particular genre.
Yeah.
Because when I post on SoundCloud, I can type in whatever tag I want.
Right. Yeah.
And I have not constricted myself to it. But if you take my entire body of work over the past 12 years, electronic, okay, that's about as general as I can get with it.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Electronica, and then there's dance, EDM, I guess would be another generic term for it. But it doesn't sound like EDM, like a club track or anything like that. Some songs do, but other ones are more punk rock influenced. So like you know, Brent Simon, you know, and he's got his chord progressions are like pop inspired, and his singing, it's if you were to take guitars, it's a punk rock song, you know, like very simple chords, fast beat, you know, the drum beats that you play to a Brent Simon song are very much what you play in a pop punk song.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you take that and put it into electronics, then you get electronic punk sort of thing. I don't know. It's all over the place.
I mean, I guess to come full circle, I saw somewhere on there you have a Space Camp cover, like electronic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did. I recreated Space Camp.
Yeah.
Just for fun and put it out there. People were asking for it.
Yeah.
They wanted the sheet music too, so I provided that.
Oh, gotcha.
like tabs.
Yeah.
I just had it because I was like, what are the notes? So then I had to go I recreated it to figure out what the notes were.
Right.
And then I uploaded that to the tab site.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a link to that. I guess to your website also, to like you have a Spotify like profile and stuff like that. So I'll put a link to that as well in the show notes. So people can check that out. Is there anything in particular that you definitely want to make sure people can find you? You know, like where can people go to learn more about you and just in general, I guess.
Okay, so three websites are my main places right now. So jefffinley.org is my main site. It's got pretty much everything you want to know about me. My blog articles and everything, my books, my graphic design and art that I've done the past 12 years, and my music. But if you want my music specifically, look up Starbound Renegade. And if you want to check out my patches on Etsy, look up Starseed Supply. It's actually Starseed Supply Co. or starsuitsupply.co. And all that is on Instagram. You know, Instagram is, I don't use Twitter much anymore. So
gotcha. All right.
But that's where I'm at. And, you know, my books, you can find me on Amazon. If you look up Jeff Finley on Amazon, you'll find my 3 books, Thread's Not Dead, Wake Up, and Maker Mistaker.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there is the Maker Mistaker podcast archive too, if you find that on iTunes, if it's still available. But if not, you can find it on jefffinley.org.
Gotcha. Cool. So I'll put links to those different things that people can check out in the show notes, and that should at least get them started for where they can go to find more information. Is there anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
No, I can't really think of anything other than, you know, I just wanted to remind your listeners to, you know, stay true to yourself and focus on truth and learn how to understand what your soul wants to do, you know, and to honor that above all else.
Those are good words. I think easier said than done, but definitely a life's mission.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jeff, it's such an honor to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, I appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
We were going for like an hour and a half there, so I was like,
yep. No, that's good. We covered so much stuff.
I was like, well,